I fed them. She watched me, and her daughter whispered, "Please don't leave my mom alone." It began on the temple ship Calith Saren, drifting like a silent cathedral above Earth, cloaked in sacred plasma and ritual silence. Mason Graves had no reason to be nervous. He'd survived wars, wormholes, and at least one drunken brawl with a Gorthan arms dealer. But as he stepped into the golden-lit chamber marked with ancient glyphs and swirling vapors, something in his gut twisted. He'd been told this was a diplomatic health assessment. Standard protocol, they said. Just a routine scan to confirm he could safely interact with Varelian culture. But there was nothing routine about what stood waiting for him. Elya-Tar was not a doctor. She was tall, her skin a shimmering veil of opalescent silver, with faint blue veins glowing beneath the surface like moonlight through crystal. Her eyes soft lavender and impossibly deep watched him with clinical curiosity, and something else. Hunger, fascination. Mason wasn't sure, but he suddenly felt like a specimen on display, not a guest of honor. "Please," she said, her voice cool and layered, almost melodic. "Disrobe. I must see your structure." Fully Mason raised an eyebrow. "This normal Varelian diplomacy." Elya tilted her head. "You are the first human to stand before me. Your species emits heat, intensity, a strange, pulsing pressure I cannot define. I must understand it." Mason hesitated. But orders were orders, and honestly, the look she gave him felt more ceremonial than creepy. He removed his gear piece by piece, feeling oddly like a sacrificial offering when he stood bare under the blue ambient light. Elya inhaled softly. "Your blood burns with light," she whispered, stepping closer. "Your form it is large, exceptionally." Mason cleared his throat. "You mean tall?" "No," she said without blinking, her gaze sliding lower. "Not tall." She circled him slowly, not touching, just observing. Her breath came quicker, her fingers twitching slightly at her sides. She reached for a small orb on a pedestal, which floated into the air and began scanning his chest, his arms, his thighs. The orb paused when it reached between his legs, blinking. "Rapidly, I was told. Your kind mated with intensity," Elya murmured half to herself. "But this body could challenge our understanding of physical compatibility." Mason tried not to smirk. "So I'm passing the test." Her eyes met his again, and this time the curiosity had bloomed into something much warmer. "Are changing my expectations," she admitted. "My biology responds to yours. That should not be possible. We are cold-blooded. We do not ... respond." Mason shifted slightly. The air was thick now with temperature, but with something else. A pull, a connection he hadn't expected, and definitely hadn't prepared for. "Is this part of the scan?" he asked, half joking. Elya didn't laugh. She stepped closer, close enough for her cool skin to brush his arm. Her breath was mint-sharp and sweet. "This is no longer a scan," she said. "This is discovery," he swallowed. She reached out, hesitantly, like a high priestess touching a relic long lost. When her fingers grazed his chest, her pupils dilated, her hand trembled. She didn't pull away. "You are heat and force and scent and power. Your form," she closed her eyes. "It is not simply compatible. It is overwhelming." Mason, for once, was speechless. No alien briefing had mentioned this. No cultural database had prepared him for spiritual emissaries with trembling hands and a growing flush spreading down their neck. Elya leaned in, her face inches from his. "In our ancient legends," she whispered, "there were beings from the stars who came not with weapons, but with warmth. They touched us, melted us, changed us." He blinked. "I thought you didn't believe in myths." "We didn't," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Until now." Mason stood perfectly still. He could feel her body, radiating cool waves, and yet her breath grew warmer. Her fingers traced his shoulder, down his arm, stopping just before his wrist. She looked at him not like an experiment, but like someone about to take a risk. "I was told humans were dangerous," she said softly. "And do I look dangerous to you?" "Yes," she replied, "but not in the way I expected." Silence fell between them, thick electric. The orb beeped once and floated back to its pedestal. "Ignored." Elya finally stepped back, her face composed again, but her voice softer now. "The test is concluded." Mason raised an eyebrow, and she turned, walking slowly toward the exit. "You passed, Commander Graves." She paused at the threshold and looked over her shoulder. Her eyes glowed faintly in the temple light. "I will request further examination soon." Then she vanished into the shadows, leaving Mason alone, fully aware that the real contact had only just begun. Mason didn't sleep that night. He tried. Back in his quarters on the orbital dock, he laid flat on the bunk, staring at the ceiling. Thence, while the recycled air hissed and whirred like some old-world lullaby that had forgotten the tune, but his mind was stuck in the temple, on her, on Elyota, on the way her breath hitched when she touched his skin, on the quiet shock in her voice when she'd called him overwhelming. Hell of a word to describe a man who mostly ate noodles and forgot how to smile in photos. The next morning, a message pulsed on his datapad. "Return. Your biology requires further observation." It was signed with her symbol, a spiral of water and fire. "Ancient Varelian, older than half the stars in their quadrant." He chuckled. Observation, huh? If that was science, he was suddenly a fan of alien research methods. Back on the temple ship, the air seemed warmer. That made no sense. Varelians kept their ships at barely 14 degrees Celsius, but as he stepped into the chamber again, Mason could swear the walls breathed. Elia stood at the center, robed now in something more intricate than before, woven silver threads, sheer in places, swirling with moving glyphs that blinked like slow heartbeats. She didn't speak at first, just circled him again, scanning him, with her eyes this time, not a machine. Then finally she asked, "Do you know what happens when cold-blooded creatures are exposed to a heat source too long?" Mason grinned. "They warm up, sometimes too fast." "They change," she corrected. "Internally, irreversibly." She walked closer. "Your presence is altering my systems. My chemical balances have shifted. My scent glands have activated. That hasn't happened since adolescence." He raised a brow. "So you're saying I'm, what, triggering your mating season?" "No," she said. "We don't have seasons, we don't mate." Pause. Then quietly, "Not like this." Now that caught his attention, Elia moved to a console and tapped it with 2 fingers. A display of DNA strands hovered in mid of hers, and his glowed red, burning bright against her soft aquamarine sequence. "Your structure is chaotic, aggressive, reproductive on a scale we've never encountered. You produce 11 times more fertility proteins than any known species in our database." Mason crossed his arms. "I've been told I'm energetic." "Yeah." She didn't smile, not fully, but her eyes flickered with amusement. "You're a biological weapon against celibacy." That made him laugh, low and rough. "You just say that to all the Earth boys." "No," she said. "You are the first, likely the only. Our culture doesn't survive physical intimacy. Well, emotion and touch are restricted to pre-bonded circles. Outside them, our physiology degrades, overheats, melts." He stepped closer now, voice dropping. "And yet here you are asking for more." "I didn't say it was wise," she replied, "only necessary." Their eyes met. Something old passed between them. Not lust, not yet, but the promise of it. Like kindling, looking at a spark and knowing it's about to burn. Suddenly, a pulse rang out through the chamber, a low chime. Elia's posture stiffened. "The council is watching," she said quickly. "They sense deviations. Must justify my research." Mason stepped back. "Should I go?" She reached out, not grabbing, just touching his hand with her fingers, cold and soft. "No, they want proof." He blinked. "Proof of what?" "That you can be touched without breaking me." The challenge hung in the air like charged static. Mason took her hand fully in his thermo. Her fingers trembled but didn't pull away. Then, slowly, he brought her palm to his chest, right over his heart. "You feel that?" he asked. She nodded once. "It's loud. Yours can be too. You just need a reason." They stood like that in silence, heartbeats mixing with chamber chimes, old instincts cracking under new need. For the first time in Varelian history, someone reached across the line that said "do not touch," and stayed there. What neither of them knew was that far above, in a council chamber pulsing with neural activity, 8 elder priestesses stared at the live readings. One of them leaned back slowly and whispered, "The human may be dangerous." Another replied, voice grim but curious, "or evolutionary." They watched Elia lean closer to the human male, and none of them stopped her. Asterisk. Elia didn't sleep either. Varelians didn't need sleep in the human sense, but they entered a meditative state to process emotional data. Hers had failed to initiate because her body was too warm, because her pulse, normally slow and steady, now surged like a river in thaw. The cause? Mason Graves. She had touched him, fully felt the heat in his chest, the strange rhythm of his inner fire. It should have sent her into sensory retreat. Instead, she had lingered, and she wanted more. At the temple's core, beneath layers of ceremonial logic, biology had begun to rebel. When Mason arrived the next morning, not even pretending to hide his grin, he found Elia waiting. No robe, no veil. Just a light wrap around her form, revealing the delicate shimmer of her skin and the faint silver markings that glowed when she breathed. "I was hoping this was more than just a one-time experiment," he said, stepping into the chamber. "It is not an experiment," she answered, voice low. "It's a crisis for me." Mason stopped. "You okay?" She moved closer. Her breath was still cool, but less so. Her body radiated soft heat, now just enough to fog the air between them. "I burned a ceremonial mat last night. My body temperature reached levels unknown in our medical history." "Damn," he murmured. "Should I apologize or take that as a compliment?" She tilted her head. "You should take responsibility." He laughed. "That's fair." Then something unexpected. Elia reached for him openly without hesitation. She touched his face, palm resting against his stubble. Her eyes narrowed, studying the lines around his mouth, the slight asymmetry in his jaw. "Your imperfections fascinate me," she whispered. "We design away our flaws. But your body is raw, chaotic, virile," and yet her fingers trailed down to his neck, then chest, stable. Mason's breath hitched. "You really know how to compliment a guy, don't you?" "I don't know how, that's the problem. I only know what I feel, and I was not designed to feel like this." Then she leaned in. Her lips brushed his gist, barely. Her touch was featherlight, like someone tasting heat. For the first time and not sure whether to run or stay, Mason didn't move, didn't push. He let her explore, let her lead. She pulled back an inch. He didn't grab me. You're not a test tube, he replied. You're a woman, a damn intriguing one. Ilya inhaled deeply. Then let me ask something dangerous. Shoot. She stepped back, slowly disrobing until her upper torso was Beverellian-style modesty being entirely unrelated to human norms. Her skin glistened faintly, silver-toned and patterned like gentle ripples across water. Our mating traditions are symbolic. We do not require insertion. We exchange biosignals encoded through the skin. But I want more. I want your way. Mason blinked. You sure? She nodded, her voice shaky now. I do not want to observe your biology anymore. I want to merge with it. There it was. No ritual, no fanfare. Just raw honesty from a species raised to silence. Mason stepped forward, wrapped his arms around her waist, her cool skin like living marble, and kissed her fully this time. Ilya shuddered, and then she made a sound Mason had never heard from an alien before. A soft, gasping moan. Her body responded quickly, too quickly. The silver markings on her arms flared, and her pulse became visible under her skin. Her entire frame shook like a harp string stretched to its limit. She pulled away with wide eyes. This is too much. It's too intense. Mason steadied her. Then we slow down. I'm not going anywhere. She looked up, breath hitching. You would wait, Ilya, he said softly, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. You've waited your whole life to feel like this. The least I can do is wait a little longer. For the first time, she smiled, truly smiled. Later that night, back in the council chambers, the elders watched the scans. Thermal spikes, pheromone surges, genetic rebalancing. One priestess leaned back, her expression unreadable. The human is not just mating her, she said. Another nodded grimly. He's awakening her. Far below, in the quiet warmth of the temple chamber, Ilya curled against Mason for the first time in her life, not for protocol, not for study, but for comfort. She whispered into his chest, voice thick with something alien and achingly human. Don't let go. He tightened his hold around her. Not a chance. Ilya had never slept in the human sense. But she did something close at night, trapped in Mason's arms, skin flushed warm from his touch, her breath sinking slowly to his. Her kind called it resonance rest, an ancient practice lost long before she was born. Now, with his heartbeat drumming gently against her back, she understood why her ancestors had treasured it. She woke first, body humming in a way she couldn't fully describe. Not pain, not discomfort. Something more dangerous. Desire, not biological necessity. Want. He stirred beside her, shirtless, skin marked by faint traces of their contact silver imprints that had transferred during the night. Ilya traced one with her finger, watching it shimmer beneath his skin like moonlight trapped in muscle. He cracked one eye open. You drawing on me again? She didn't smile, but her hand stayed. Our markings respond to emotional intensity. They've never transferred before. You're absorbing me. Mason raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried? No, she said, quieter now, but I should be. She slid from the bedding, letting the thin temple sheet fall from her body. Her figure was lithe, alien but graceful, with skin now tinged in pale rosenherder for her kind. She turned her back to him, studying her reflection in the glyph mirror. Her scales were glowing along her hips. Her hair had brightened. Internal scans would confirm it later, but she already knew. Something fundamental had changed. Mason sat up, draping the sheet loosely over his lap. So, that whole cold-blooded thing, kind of melting away, huh? She turned, giving him a look that was equal parts awe and accusation. You are rewiring my genetic pathways just by which is existing next to me. Imagine what breakfast would do. She blinked. Breakfast. He stood, walked up behind her, kissed the side of her neck. Her body shivered visibly, the silver markings flaring again. Humans have rituals, he said into her ear. One of them is eating pancakes after great sex. I don't know what pancakes are, she said, dazed. You're gonna love them. She laughed, actually laughed. I sound so rare among her people that the ship's AI made a soft chime in response, as if logging an anomaly. Her kind were taught serenity, stillness. But now, she felt wildfire under her skin. And he had lit it. The temple's central AI pinged her cortex. Genetic abnormality detected. Request medical clarification. She ignored it. Instead, she turned to Mason and placed a hand over his chest again. Your anatomy is extreme, he smirked. You say that like it's a complaint. She didn't blink. It's not. It's revelatory. She walked him to the inner pool chamber, sacred place reserved for pre-union rituals. No off-worlder had ever been inside. He stripped without hesitation, and she followed, stepping into the water beside him. Steam rose around them, thick with incense and pheromone-reactive mist. He pulled her gently into his arms, their skin making full contact under the water's surface. She gasped, not from fear, but from a spike in sensation. Her entire nervous system flared to life. Mason, she whispered. I'm here, he said, lips brushing hers. I've never felt this much. He guided her hand down, helping her understand exactly what he was. Her fingers wrapped around him and her pupils dilated instantly. This isn't scalable. Your body shouldn't fit into ours. Mason leaned into her, grinning. Guess I'll have to take my time. Then, and he did. What happened in the water that night wasn't just physical. It was transformative. Her body adapted in real time. Her internal temperature rose by 10 degrees. Her skin darkened to rose gold. Her scent altered chemically, marking her as bodied a process previously thought impossible without sacred Varelian ceremony. When it was done, she floated in his arms, trembling gently, eyes half closed. That was far beyond data. She whispered, "You're welcome," Mason muttered, smug and breathless. Later, back in her quarters, she stood before the temple window, bare and glowing, watching Earth's blue curve in the distance. She placed a hand on her stomach, sensing something new. Not pain, not hunger. Life. Her body, against all scientific precedent, had accepted human seed. She didn't need a scan to confirm it. She knew, and when Mason came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his head on her shoulder, she leaned into him and said, "I think I'm carrying something impossible." He kissed her neck. "Then we'll raise something miraculous." Far above, the council chambers lit up with alerts. Cross-species embryo detected. Threat level unknown, but for the first time in Varelian history, no one voted to terminate. They simply watched and waited. Elya sat still, her back straight, eyes closed, surrounded by the hum of biooracle lights and sacred frequency chimes. Inside her body, the child was already growing, not just cells change. Her blood was warmer now, no longer circulating in slow pulses like a Varelian priestess, but racing like a human soldier in combat. Her organs had subtly shifted, expanded. A third lung sac had formed on its own, something no Varelian had evolved in 10 millennia. She wasn't just pregnant, she was becoming something new. When she opened her eyes, Mason was already watching her, shirt off, leaning against the temple archway like a myth wrapped in skin, not smug, not grinning, just there, present in a way most men weren't. "You didn't tell me last night," he said, voice low. "But I knew." Elya rose slowly, hands over her belly. "I wasn't hiding it. I was protecting it." He crossed the room. "From who? Me?" "No," she whispered from them. Above them, the council had called an emergency session. 8 high priestesses connected through a neural tether, each wearing the same expressionless mask of tradition. "She carries hybrid life," said Elder Voska. "Our genetics may not survive the strain. The human is corrupting our sacred line." Another hissed, "We must extract it." But one younger voice interrupted, "And yet she still breathes." The room went silent. Her body adapted. "That's not corruption, that's evolution." Back in her chamber, Elya shuddered. Her link to the council had activated briefly. She had heard the word extraction, her hands clenched. "They're afraid," she told Mason, "of me. Of us." Mason didn't flinch. "Then we make them understand." She looked up at him. "You don't get it. I'm not just carrying a child. I'm carrying proof that what they call sacred limits are lies." He nodded. "Good, then let them see the truth." Later that cycle, Elya stood before the council in the core chamber, fully exposed. No veil, no robes, only the silver skin of a woman reborn. Mason stood at her side, wearing full Earth Alliance dress uniform, cleaned up for the first time in months. The priestesses gasped, not at him, but at her. Her body glowed now, rose gold and radiant, with faint bioluminescent veins visible across her hips and abdomen. Sacred symbols once only seen on temple walls had emerged naturally across her skin. "You carry unauthorized life," Voska began coldly. "I carry the future," Elya replied. "You have broken law. I have fulfilled prophecy." That silenced them. Mason stepped forward. "Look, I don't care about your politics. But this woman, this mother chose something real. You can punish her, or you can evolve with her." Voska sneered. "Why would we adapt to your chaos?" Elya spoke, voice calm but sharp. "Because my child already has, and so have I. You call it chaos, I call it strength." There was a pause. Then the youngest priestess stood. "We should not fear this. She has crossed the uncrossable land, lived." The room erupted in murmurs. Elya held Mason's hand tighter. Her skin pulsed with warmth. She was no longer a curiosity. She was a choice, a challenge, a new beginning. That night, back in the chamber where it had all begun, Mason pulled her into his arms again. She curled into him, exhausted but smiling for the first time in her life. "I thought they'd tear me down," she said softly. "They still might," Mason replied. "But they'll have to go through me." She looked up at him. "You're serious?" He kissed her forehead. "Dead serious. You're not just mine anymore. You're ours, all 3 of us." A hand slid to her belly. "You think it's a boy?" He shrugged. "Don't care. As long as they inherit your fire and my stubbornness," Elya chuckled. "That's dangerous." "Exactly," he whispered. In the shadows of the temple, a new star was charting its course. Not born yet, but already. Undeniable. The first time the gods came for her. Elya didn't run. She didn't need to. Mason met them at the door. They weren't soldiers, just robed in forces of temple doctrine, unarmed, unprepared, and wholly unused to a shirtless human, male with broad shoulders, a low growl in his throat, and a plasma kettle in one hand like a club. "She's not going anywhere," he said flatly. The guards blinked. "She's a carrier of unstable life," one stammered. "She's carrying my child." Mason snapped. So unless one of you wants a first-hand lesson in Earth-style paternity instincts, I'd turn around and rethink your spiritual priorities. They left. That night, Elia lay curled in his arms again, but this time with no peace. She stared at the ceiling, glowing faintly under the temple's soft lights. I won't stop, she whispered. I won't either, he replied. They'll exile me, then I'll build us a new home. She looked up, where the station doesn't recognize our union. The Earth Alliance won't risk a diplomatic scene, and the Varelians don't deserve you, Mason finished. We'll go somewhere else, Elia blinked. There is nowhere else. There is, he said. We just haven't carved it out yet. By dawn, he'd called in every favor he had left: an old smuggler buddy, a diplomat with a gambling problem, and a retired station engineer who owed Mason to broken ribs and a bottle of brandy. They secured a decommissioned habitat ring orbiting Europa, outdated, underpowered, and technically uninhabitable, but it was theirs. Mason called it Sanctum. 3 days later, Elia stood at the edge of that quiet ring, watching Europa's icy glow shimmer below. The baby inside her pulsed with warmth now. Even the station's AI had commented on the abnormal development rate, cross-species gestation complete in half-standard term. It chirped clinically, unprecedented. Also adorable, Sanctum's walls were bare, the air thin, the heat barely consistent, but Elia didn't care. Mason had built her a sleep nest from thermal blankets and hoverfoam. He cooked real food, or tried to. His pancakes were mostly burnt protein paste, but she ate them anyway. He sang off-key when she couldn't sleep. He kissed her like she mattered. It wasn't a palace, it was home. When the council sent a final warning, terminate the bond or face disavowal, Lelia didn't respond. She sent a scan of the baby instead. The heartbeats, yes plural, were clear too. Of them, the Varelians hadn't evolved twins in 600 years. Their bodies weren't capable. Hers was now. She watched the council's return transmission flicker out. For the first time, they had no rebuttal. Just silence. And then, an unexpected twist. An emissary arrived. Not a priest, not a soldier. A young initiate named Sale, barely of age, pale and nervous, and wearing a patchwork robe with stolen human tech woven through it. I volunteered, she said, eyes wide as she studied Elia's form. To learn, to adapt. Elia looked at Mason. He grinned. Told you, you're starting a revolution. In the weeks that followed, more came. Not many, not all, but enough Varelians. Born into silence, tired of waiting for permission to feel, they came to Sanctum like pilgrims. Some seeking knowledge, some just seeking to touch, to feel the warmth Elia now radiated constantly. Her pregnancy had altered her aura, made her glow. Literally. Mason never left her side. He taught them how to cook, how to laugh, how to curse. Creatively, when the gravity systems flickered, Elia taught them how to listen to their bodies, how to accept the warmth, how not to be afraid of the chaos. She was no longer a priestess, she was a mother, a symbol, a spark. One night, as Mason lay beside her, hand resting over the twin pulses in her belly, he asked softly, "You ever think you'd end up here, glowing like a goddess in a tin can?" She laughed. "I thought I'd die reciting prayers I didn't believe. Guess this is better." She kissed him, long and deep. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said. "Not of them, not of change, not of loving you." He pulled her close. "Good. Because I'm never letting go." And outside, drifting above a frozen moon, a rusted station lit up with soft orange life sign pulses beating strong, steady, a tiny human fire. In the cold dark of space. And it was just getting started. The twins came early, not in danger but with force, like stars refusing to wait for gravity's permission. Elia labored in the center of Sanctum, surrounded by warmth and chaos. The temple chambers had been retrofitted into a birthing suite, crude but sacred, filled with the scents of boiled tea leaves and the low hum of old earth lullabies. Mason didn't leave her side, not for a second. She clutched his hand like it was the only thing anchoring her to the universe. "It's happening," she gasped, body glowing, sweat shimmering over her rose-gold skin. "You're doing perfect," he whispered, kissing her forehead. "You've already survived the hard part. Now you just become a legend." She laughed between breaths. "I thought I already was. You are. But this is your myth." The birth wasn't quiet, it was seismic. Her cries echoed through the ring, not pain-powered. Elia sang the old tones as she pushed, blending sacred Varelian hymns with something raw, primal, and human. Mason's hand was crushed halfway through, but he didn't complain. He didn't even feel it. And then a first cry, then a second. Two small bodies, slick with stardust and life, were held aloft by the AI's surgical arms. One glowed faint violet, the other pulsed with human red. Twins. Hybrid. Alive. They were perfect. Mason stared in stunned silence. They're Elia reached for them, her body trembling, her aura flickering with gold light. "They're ours," she whispered. "No council, no exile, no doctrine, just family." They named the girl Arel, after the Varelian word for flame. The boy Colt, after Mason's grandfather, rugged farmer, who once fought off bandits with nothing but a shovel and a six-pack. Fitting. The weeks passed in gentle chaos. Iera glowed when she slept. Colt kicked with uncanny strength before he could crawl. They both had their mother's eyes, but their father's will. They were impossible, and yet they thrived. Word spread other Varelians came, not just initiates now, but elder priestesses, defectors, thinkers, some still afraid, but curious. They didn't come to debate, they came to learn. Elya taught them that heat wasn't chaos, it was growth. Mason taught them how to hold a baby without dropping it, how to mix synthetic batter with real spice, and how to swear at faulty gravity rings in 3 human languages and 1 Varelian dialect. Sanctum became more than home, it became known, an unofficial station, an illegal colony, a whispered miracle. The Earth Alliance ignored it officially, unofficially. A supply drone docked every month without explanation, and always left lighter. The Varelian Council never issued another order. How could they? The children weren't threats, they were proof that warmth could change a species, proof that love, when unchained, rewrote biology. One night, years later, Mason stood in the garden dome, now fully grown, vines reaching the ceiling under UV glow. Era was swinging from a low branch, her laughter like wind chimes. Colt was arguing with the AI about engine upgrades. Elia appeared beside him, her hair streaked with silver, her glow still soft but constant. "You did it," he said, arm sliding around her waist. "No," she replied, "we did." He looked at her, really looked. This was the woman they once tried to exile, the one who redefined an entire species just by loving. He kissed her slow, deep, grateful. "You regret it?" he asked. She leaned into him. "I regret we didn't meet sooner." They stood in silence, watching their children living fire and defiant light play beneath an alien sky that now felt like home, and far away. Across systems and borders, they whispered her name, not as a priestess, not as a scandal, but as a mother of the first true union. Elya-tar. Who embraced the fire and never let go. The end.